Okay. Well, we have a quorum, so we will go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. First item is the approval of the last meeting minutes.
I move approval of the 26 July minutes.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next, approving the disbursements, which are in your packet.
I move approval of the disbursements in the billing table.
Second.
Okay. Any questions on those or any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up is leases, and I think just to give a little background, excuse me, for some of our newer people, this is a lease for the land that we own. Where was it? Barbecue Bones? What was the name of it? Its last incarnation, Bare Bones, down there on the riverfront, over just the east of downtown. We do not own the building; we
Correct.
own the land. And so the lease is really for the land. The folks that have that lease currently have been out of business and have not paid that for over 12 months. So Steve has done a great job of trying to source someone who could help us get something out of that land again. And so there is someone who is looking at opening a restaurant there. They would need us to assign the land lease in order for them to be able to do this. And so that's what Steve sent around, the assignment and assumption of lease that we would agree to, has the terms. I think one of the important things for the commission to know is one of the requirements of the land lease is that the lessee pays the property taxes, which has not been done by the existing lessee. So our execution of this assignment will be contingent upon receiving the payment for that, because we have paid the taxes, I believe, right, Steve?
The last round.
Yeah. So we will only execute this assignment upon payment from the existing lessee of those taxes.
It amounts to $4,840.
So with that, I'll let Steve just talk to the specific points of the assignment, and then we can discuss.
So we're in the 12th year of a 20-year long-term, land or assignment, land lease assignment. So this is an assignment and assumption of lease, and as Kelly said, it's gone through now a couple different owners of the property and the contents. So our interest in this relates only to the land, and then you see the Article 3 within the larger land lease agreement deals with rent, and one of the things we've added after some back and forth with this new tenant is having not just a percentage of gross sales minus alcohol, but to also have an actual monetary basis. So there is for example, in the first 3 years of the rent, the next few years of rent, $1,200 or 2% of gross sales, whichever is higher, and then you can kind of see then how it goes to $1,500 as the business would grow, and how that escalates to 2.5 and 3. Now that does come down in the original lease. I want to point out it would be at 3% at this point, but it actually is at 0 right now because it's empty. So you have to sort of take what you've got in reality at this point. So the other point I want to point out is that we were able now, with a new tenant, to add, if the doors are closed, because we don't have this currently for the last year, going on year and a half, since the doors have been closed, since there's no going concern inside, therefore there's no percentage to go again. So we haven't been collecting rent at all, right? So in this, we've added that there's a baseline rent of $1,500 a month if this would happen to not work out for them, and they wouldn't be able to find a successor. So we've got, some nice protections that we were able to build in that we weren't thinking of or able to build in previously.
And Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the folks that are looking at doing this already currently have 3
Yes.
restaurants that are successful in the Quad Cities, and so
That's correct.
this would be a tenant who really knows what they're doing and
Exactly
has
right.
some existing wherewithal and structure to be able to succeed down there.
That's right, and plan to invest over $100,000 in a build-out and are looking to close with the existing owner inside of under 30 days at this point and get about that investment. And I haven't heard of an opening day, but I think from all intents and purposes, they're interested in opening very soon. And so they asked for, as this back and forth of negotiations went forward, they did ask for 3 months of rent abatement. We agreed ultimately on 2. And so the initial 2 months of rent will be abated, but they will begin then on November 1st, paying rent.
So if I could have a motion and a second, then we'll open it up for discussion.
Could I just have one more question?
Yes.
So this September 1st is actually when they take possession of the property, assuming this is approved, as opposed to opening for business. They're going to do some remodeling and so forth. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
I'll move the approval of the lease.
Second.
Okay, question, go ahead, Bill.
We own the property and we're going to lease it to these people, but the previous owner owns the building. Is there some agreement between the new owner and that owner so we're not going to get stuck in a fight between?
Yes. Yeah, and I have in my possession a copy of the offer. Yeah, so I mean, yes, there is an agreement, there's an offer, and yeah, yes, it's a legit, came through a realtor, yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Any other questions on the terms or in the plan of how we will proceed to ensure that we actually get paid on those back taxes as well? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next up is projects, and our first order of business is Chad Dyson with Parks.
Thank you all. Chad Dyson, Parks and Recreation Director, City of Davenport. Thank you, Steve, for the invite to share and discuss our Parks Master Plan. I'll just give you a real sort of high overview of the process, and then I'll go into some of the findings, recommendations, comments in regards to Riverfront Park Plan, which is in your purview. So we started the process. Well, I'll stop. I'll pause. If anybody, this is the actual document, light reading. If anybody's interested, 532 pages. There will be a quiz at the end. Sorry. Project kicked off. We kicked off the project in fall of 2020, and it had been since 2010, since the last Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Master Plan had been done in Davenport. It was updated through a strategic plan in 2016. But the 2010 version was actually an in-house plan, and we hadn't really ever done one with a consultant-driven plan. So we were excited. We brought Confluence out of Cedar Rapids. They were the consultant team that led the process, along with Pros Consulting in Indianapolis. Kicked off the project in the fall of 2020. In hindsight, the biggest challenge really was doing this during the pandemic. So it took us a little longer to get to the finish line, but we're pretty happy with the end result. The whole process concluded this past April when we presented it to council, and they accepted the plan. And so now our team is working through the recommendations, and as we go into budget, looking how we can implement some of the recommendations and changes. So really, the document itself, components, the main plan consists of an intro process, needs, remarks, assessment, and then implementation. And then there's 7 appendices, including the bulk of the document is really the facility assessment. So our consultant team came in, did an assessment of all 39 of our parks, all our indoor facilities, our trails, our special use facilities, like some of the historic houses we maintain as part of the department. So about 300 or so pages of the document are really that assessment portion. So they basically looked at existing conditions, rated things, everything from site furnishings, playgrounds, shelters, ADA components, the whole constitution of a park layout, and then made recommendations. The other key thing was the public input process, a little bit different than probably a normal process because of the pandemic. We couldn't do as many in-person town hall type meetings. So they used a pretty cool tool called Social Pinpoint to gather a lot of feedback. Hopefully you guys saw that when we did that and had the opportunity to give us some feedback through that process. And in actuality, we yielded probably higher comment and results than we would through in-person meetings. So the consultant team and us were very pleased with that. In summary on the public input, the Social Pinpoint yielded 3,233 visits, 802 unique users, and average time spent was about 3 minutes on the survey. So it is pretty good thing. Another key component, and then I'll jump into sort of the riverfront things, because I know that's what you're really, really interested in, was the benchmarking analysis that was done. So we compared to 5 peer communities of similar size, Cedar Rapids, Olathe, Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas, Carmel Clay, Indiana, and then West Des Moines was on it. We had a hard time collecting data from them. But a lot of key things that came out of council's interest was really how we rated with those peer communities from a department standard in terms of capital outlay, in terms of staffing, in terms of acres managed, that type of stuff. One compelling thing to note is that of all our peer agencies, we ranked last in capital improvements in our park system. We spend about 1/10 of what our peer communities spend on parks. So that's something, you know, we're trying to work on. We're accomplishing a lot of that with some of the ARPA park projects. You know, that's helped a little bit, but we're hoping to see some long-term investment in our park system. Looking at some of the comments, and I'll preface some of the riverfront, the bulk of it isn't earth-shattering information. I'll be real clear. I mean, we were intentional knowing that a lot of the riverfront parks have been through a multitude of other planning processes. So really it looked more critically at existing conditions and infrastructure and small changes. So there's no, what I would say, major programmatic change or recommendation to any of the riverfront parks. But I'll share a couple of the recommendations as it pertains. For example, Centennial Park, expansion of the sports fields east towards the parking lot, additional parking on the interior, identify pedestrian crossings from the parking lots to the sports fields and Spray Park. Skate Park got a lot of feedback, doing some enhancement with lighting to make it more safe. Also repurposing the concession stand that has been not operated in quite some time. Moving on to Credit Island Park. Again, some of these things we've all talked about at this level, you know, what to do with the causeway, you know, raise the causeway, replace it with a bridge, create an outdoor wedding venue, celebration gathering space adjacent to the lodge, so enhance the lodge to make it a more quality event facility. Relocate the storage and maintenance building, the old golf course, the storage area maintenance behind the lodge, and then develop a kayak canoe launch and to the interior of the lagoon and the slough, which is something I know Steve and I have talked about. Again, and then a lot of the recommendations were based on a lot of the public comment, right? It wasn't just our consultant team saying, this is what you should do. You know, they took a lot of the feedback they got. LeClaire Park incorporated adjacent riverfront projects to the east end of the park, which we've looked at. Lindsay Park, there were some ADA things with that. There's also some ideas of more accessible route from the trail behind the baseball field to the playground to get up the hill. Veterans Memorial Park, not a whole lot on that because it's under construction and it already had been master planned. The Mississippi Regional Trail ranked really highly, just noted some maintenance. One of the big themes that came out from the public is a need or a want for lighting along our trail system. And then I would note that overarching themes in the whole plan really include a focus on neighborhood parks with the development of new neighborhood parks, increased trail connections, particularly north-south corridor, and new indoor recreation community facilities, and then a real need for improved maintenance overall in the park system, which goes back to a lot of the benchmarking comments we received regarding staffing levels and budget and other things and resources were given. So again, not a lot of earth-shattering stuff on the riverfront as far as the plan goes, but some valuable insight as to, you know, our existing conditions and our maintenance standards that we can improve upon. So I'm going to pause, see if there's questions, comments, or anything else I could share with you regarding the plan.
Ted, I'm just curious, and maybe the plan didn't do this, and maybe this is something that you will be doing, but is there a ranking of the order in which things might get tackled as you went through that list?
Yeah, there's a prioritization on the back in the recommendation section that basically ranks them to 1, 2, and 3 level, and 1 being the highest priority or need to be addressed, 2, and then 3. So yeah, there is a order of some sort to look at.
And were any of the riverfront park areas in the top priority list?
The Credit Island stuff, I think, was a high focus. I believe the lodge enhancements was highly recommended. And then the skate park stuff, particularly the safety in the concession stand, because of ongoing issues that we're experiencing there, rated pretty highly. So,
thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have questions for Chad? Comments?
Come on, okay. D. Got some.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time.
Yeah,
And the plan is on our website. I also have hard copies if you ever want to see it. And enjoyed.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
We did the River West concept, right? And so I'm sure this did not address that in any way because it's looking at existing.
Yeah. So we did provide all previous planning processes. So our consultant team was given a copy of River West, Go Davenport, River Vision, all those sort of things as a reference, but it didn't go, I guess, knee deep into that plan per se because it was already done. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Thank you.
But I want to make mention here, just because I think it makes sense to do so, that the core process that we had undertaken a couple of years ago, and many of us were involved with, we've reached back around, and I've been in touch with a gentleman named Jim Homan, who has asked for like a letter of interest, like an official letter of interest from the city, and that there's some dollars, some planning dollars, basically, that the Corps can front, which would help. Like, basically, we'd undertake like a feasibility study, which they would front, and after a certain dollar amount, the city would split like 50-50, and then you get into construction dollars. I don't want to get too far in the weeds. What I'm trying to convey is that there's dollars there that that we've been looking for, you know, and especially with some ARPA dollars backfilling some of these construction dollars as well, to the tune of a 65-35, if not better. Long story short, that whole process begins with this letter of interest, and so I've been talking to administration about this, and it's a very simplified couple paragraph letter that I've begun to draft. Wanted all of you to know that process gets, on the core side, begins to get prioritized both locally and then regionally and then nationally. That process gets underway around the end of the calendar year, and it looks good, our project, from an ecological standpoint. Some of the very things that we had undertaken a couple years ago through our strategic planning initiative called River West, right? For whatever reason now, things look a little better. I don't want to get our hopes up too much, but it was not for naught at that point. And so we'll see where it goes.
Go ahead, Dee.
So you would work with the administration that you're interested in, and then you would have to describe what you're interested in, right?
The process, what I understand from Mr. Homan with the Corps would be that we would send in initially this letter of interest, and then from there, the Corps would begin. We'd have to be an active partner, but we would begin to determine the project scope, right? But that the initial up to $100,000 project is borne by them, that feasibility study, and all along we would begin to hone in on the costs that we're looking at. So we don't have to worry initially about undertaking an unbudgeted project here, because nothing is in the budget right yet, but that we'd have ample time to determine that and get it in the budget.
I think I'm more interested in not the money, but the scope that we could, with parks, come together with the scope of what this project would be. And I think, from the Corps' perspective and from the water perspective, it is really the sustainability of an island in the Mississippi River today, in terms of our climate, in terms of how degraded it is right now, and what can it be? I mean, I'm not looking to have a wedding at the lodge. I really would like to make sure that something might grow there in the future.
Right. And I feel like,
and I would think that would be something that they, because I know they have a channel issue, and we would love to put a bridge in. We talked to them about, and they were like, well, there's a whole Black Hawk watershed, and you might actually just put more dirt in our channel. So, I mean, we really have to work that out. So in the future, we have potential for projects.
Right. So I feel like it's kind of maybe a multitude of these things coming together, but that this is a major one that we need to involve and try to coordinate.
Yeah, I mean, this seems great to potentially have the funds be made available somewhere else to do that kind of study. What is the timeline and when you think you need to get the letter to them?
I would really like to make sure that on this side, since it's no strings attached, that we should be able to do that by the end of September, like within the next few weeks. Make sure that everyone on this side, it would be signed by the mayor is the request, and so I need to make sure that the council and the mayor are all, on board.
But we just need to initiate it and just get it rolling is your thought.
That's right.
Yeah,
I mean,
great.
It doesn't have to be a 3-page. We're not identifying the scope of the work. We're really just initiating the contact and making it official, so that then the Corps can acknowledge that we're interested.
Good.
So maybe if that letter gets put together before
you all would get it.
We could maybe, I know we can't have an unofficial meeting, but if we could all see it, it would be nice.
I have no problem with that.
Convey, or Kelly convey
Absolutely.
to the mayor that we're interested in.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay, that sounds great.
If I can just add one thing off topic of this, since you brought up that in Credit Island, I don't know if this body is aware, but we submitted a REAP grant, Resource Enhancement Grant with the DNR for a project at Credit Island to do a lagoon sort of restoration, some native enhancements, and then to enhance habitat for the pink turtlehead, which is an endangered species. So that was submitted last Monday. And I believe the REAP meeting is sometime middle of September. So we'll see if we get that. That's up to $300,000 project to do some of
milkweeds for the monarch butterflies.
It will include some pollinator mix in the, and that was one of the big feedbacks we got, because we had to, with REAP, you have to go to the Scott County REAP Committee, and Roger Keene and his team, that was one of the things they thought would rate highly. So we changed some of the initial mix to include pollinators.
Great.
So,
Right. Thank you very much, Chad.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks,
update,
Chad.
very
Thanks.
helpful. Next update on just the CP letter. You all saw that. Steve, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to add, just in case people had questions also on kind of where we are with that.
No, just that sometimes, try to avoid doing things such as that, but I don't think there were any issues with that, but, we need to formally, retroactively, I guess, approve that
Okay, so
at
you
this
need a
meeting.
motion on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It already did, and all of that, and nobody voiced any concerns, but I feel like since we conveyed in the very letter that it was approved by you all,
We just want to ratify
I
that.
think we should retroactively do so, so. Well, I mean, I didn't say it was unanimous. I just said this body, I said that it was approved by this body, so. Correct. Correct. They did. They did.
Okay, so we need a motion to ratify that action.
My problem is that I'm working with American Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And when you write $8 million and you don't give any type of itemization what that's going to be, you're asking for a real dispute on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just approving the letter.
I think the $8 million $6 million of it is our discretion, isn't it?
Yeah, there is more of an itemization, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the Community Investment Settlement Agreement with Canadian Pacific Support Letter.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Go ahead, Bill.
Accept the letter.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up is the CIP Project Rankings, and you'll see it's on the last page of your packet. So this listing, on the left-hand side, those numbers are the original number that it was listed, order it was listed by, but the order that you see them actually shown on the page is the order of priority based on the ranking.
Correct.
So the Riverfront Freight House restrooms would be the one that ranked the highest, followed by the Freight House roof and gutter replacements and so on down. Steve, I don't know if you want to say anything or if you just want to open it up for any questions or discussion.
I was attempting to make it easier, but I know that there's a lot of information on this one page, but I was attempting to be transparent and show like all of the numbers that were submitted and, all of that, and sometimes too much, anyway. So Kelly is exactly right, but if there aren't any other questions, this is very helpful in at least as we get underway in the next, it hasn't opened up yet and it won't until probably mid-September, when I begin to complete CIP requests, and I will add all of these and any more that between now and then we might even consider.
And
but
so
this
Steve,
helps.
is this the order of priority you will give them that we are requesting it?
Or? Yeah, I mean, I think it's always helpful to, I want to include everyone's feedback, right? Yeah. I mean, and so obviously it goes through a process every year. And so it's nice to make sure that we're thinking widely about things and yearly, and even more often than that.
Sure. So to make sure I understand this, the number on the far left is the final rankings that we said that based on all the input that we all gave, the number on the left is where it came in?
No, the number on the far left is the original number that
you could frankly just disregard.
You could disregard that.
That number doesn't really mean anything.
The placement of that, like Riverfront freight house restrooms, the placement, like that, for it being listed in the first position and the item number, the freight house roof gutters, first, second, freight house window replacement, third. The item that it's listed basically is the way it's listed is the order that they came in, if you will.
So, Bill, the reason it says 3 is when he sent it out for us to rank it, that was number 3.
Oh, okay.
That was the original, right?
Okay.
I should have never listed those.
So they are in order as to how they came out as we read down the list now?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
And the number after the hyphen, after, the 1.7 and the 5, is just the average that it came to. Really superfluous information, I'm sorry.
Any thoughts, questions on the ranking? Okay.
Mine is basically, if this is our ranking, then I would think that you would work with the fiscal year they're submitted in would be what would change. And I don't know what we normally think that we can submit in a year. The dollar amount, is there one? Has there ever been one?
Well, I'm usually pretty aggressive because that's usually determined for us. Right. I don't usually predetermine that.
So the 2 for the first 5 that are 5 highest would probably be in 2024, and then you would look at the rest of these.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. And then the Credit Island Park enhancements are really not submitted by us, so it doesn't matter, right?
That's right.
Are there others like that, or is that the only one?
I'm trying to think. There might be. The stage painting might be one. That might be in parks. Like that could be they might be one. So I'll check with them and make sure that it's not a double.
Yeah. Well, we could also. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that?
I thank you all for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was nice. I liked sort of just putting it out there and people can just sort of give their thoughts on that. Yeah. Okay, next up is staff report. Steve?
Yeah, very, very quickly, if you do have an opportunity yet tonight before 7 after our meeting, head down to Sky Bridge if you wish. I know some of you might have already had the opportunity to do so. There's a bit of a staff session to get some feedback for what's leading up to the Main Street Landing project, and basically looking at some other parks that the consultant has worked with in floodplains and how that can coexist. There's always this worry about building in a floodplain and how resiliency actually can take center stage and how that can all work. And so you can actually interact with at least some visuals initially and then actually provide some feedback. I know they'll also be at the Freight House Farmers Market this Saturday with some of these same visuals and accept some additional feedback. Let's see, a couple other things. I want to make sure that you all, I'm going to have to follow up with a specific timing to invite you all, but on Tuesday, Viking, the initial cruise stopping in Davenport, Tuesday the 30th will occur. We're coordinating a very nice inaugural welcome to our community, and we're not quite sure yet on the time frame. And so I need to communicate once we know that for sure, and it might be as early as tomorrow morning, where we confirm that. I will alert you to that information, and there will be a bit of a ceremony and music and literally a rolling out the red carpet, and we'll have some public, parking areas across the street and some police helpfulness, with parking the busy street there, that kind of stuff. As the folks, that all precedes the passengers actually coming off the boat. So all that depends upon the time that they actually arrive. And we're just not clear yet on that precise time. So as soon as we know, we will let you all know, and of course the community know, and we're pretty excited about this happening on Tuesday, the 30th. I would also just say we've got a couple upcoming, it seems like summer's a blur, but there's still a lot going on, and we've got a lot more Thursday events happening. We wind up our summer concert series, at least at the band shell tomorrow night with the Central High School marching bands that perform, but then we continue on in Quinlan Court through September on Thursdays. We've got a couple movies the end of September, the last Friday in September in LeClaire Park, and the first Friday in September, first Friday in October in LeClaire Park, and a car show the first Saturday in October. So lots of things still to play out. So pretty excited about that. But at this point, I'm pretty much done with my report for tonight.
Right. Well, obviously, lots of great activity down in the Riverfront, all over the place all summer. It's been fun to see all of the activation of spaces and just really a lot of people. Every time you're downtown, there's a lot of people down there. That's good. Next up, Parks Report. We have Chris here.
I actually missed the last Parks Advisory Board meeting, but looking at the notes and the agenda, no, I was at a different parks-oriented tumbling presentation for my daughter. Actually, I missed this meeting last month because I was on RAGBRAI, which was wonderful. But same thing as kind of Steve talked about, as all the festivals over the summer for parks have been very successful. The Party in the Parks have completed, and the movies in the parks, all been very well attended, and then kind of the usual broken record of staffing is an issue, and as the pool season wound down, people started just knowing that they had 3 more days left. Some of them just left early or whatever, so it was a struggle at the end of the season. But it's kind of an ongoing thing that Parks has a lot of low-paid seasonal positions that are hard to fill in the current environment, and that affects the Riverfront and the rest of the parks.
Okay. Last up is public with business, which we don't have. Does anybody have any items for discussion, comment? Seeing none, I will take the opportunity to adjourn the meeting. All right. We are adjourned.